So just before I start, I just wanted to turn the direction towards the judges and organizers as well. Over the past 3 days, we've been working non-stop to develop prototypes, innovative prototypes to countering violent extremism. And I think the engine behind this process were people like Dr. Anne, Quintin, Shahid, and thanks again to the judges. So if we could just give them a round of applause once more. So our idea is called Extreme Heroes. And so I just want to start off this presentation with this. I am a radical. Okay? I am also extreme. And you know what? This is the exact thing that we need to develop innovative solutions. We need extreme heroes who are radical about inspiring young people. Extreme Heroes is about giving young, at-risk Muslim men who do not have an active male role model in their immediate periphery access to those thought leaders. It is an idea inspired by radical thinking. You can think of it almost as CVE 2.0. But despite all of this, the idea is very, very simple. We're looking to highlight the contribution and services of Australian Muslims here in Australia. We're talking about our Walid Alis. Susan, we expect a few points. We're thinking about and we're considering the Akram Azimis, the first Muslims in each of their respective industries to attain great achievements. These are the role models that we need, that young men need to look up to and aspire to. But beyond this, we're also thinking about the local heroes, the local champions. I'm thinking about your paramedic. I'm thinking about your local aid worker who is actively constructing and rebuilding Syria. I'm thinking about your community councillor who almost hardly ever clocks off of work at 5 p.m. And you'll realize that all of these mentors, all of these extreme heroes, by design and by construct, are all men. We are trying to do one thing. We are trying to construct, we are trying to promote a strong, non-violent masculine identity. You will also notice that each of these extreme heroes are our extreme heroes. These are Australia's extreme heroes. All right? Now I want to take you back and actually give you a personal narrative about a friend of mine named Ahmed. All right? Ahmed was going through a really dark phase in his life. And when I say he was in a really dark place, he was isolated, he was alone. At the age of 16, his father had passed away. He had no siblings. And his single mother was really, really struggling, and the community was aware of this. Soon after, we realized that Ahmed was developing an alarming and threatening attitude towards government. He was developing empathy and sympathy towards violent extremist rhetoric. And I think most damaging to his family and friends was that he was beginning to isolate himself from his immediate community. Where is Ahmed today? Ahmed is at Curtin University, working with Associate Professor Anne Ali, and he is doing the exact thing that almost cost him his life. He is countering violent extremism actively and engaged in programs that do just that. He is now an extreme hero in his own right. So what happened? What changed? What gave him this new trajectory? Well, the thing was, he was introduced to an extreme hero. For the first time in his life, somebody said to him, "You are worth something. You are worth investing in. You are worth investing my time in, and you have potential." This was the complete opposite of the wrong crowd that he initially fell for, who told him the exact same narrative. You are worth investing in. You are my friend. But the difference was somebody like Anne was developing him in a constructive capacity, those boys, those men on the other end were leading him down towards a destructive capacity. That was the difference. So in saying this, Extreme Heroes is not about countering the narrative, it's about providing an alternative narrative. We are creating a new court that has never been done before. More than that, this is a contemporary vision. It's an app. And the way it works is that users don't actually have to log in, send in their emails, put in their personal details. It's integrated across all social media platforms. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, you can immediately log into this platform. And you can log in anonymously. You can ask questions, pressing questions on religion, on politics, relationships, women's issues, career, education, and on the other end of this app are our dedicated mentors who respond in real time. And another interesting feature about this app is that all the conversations are in fact archived. All the conversations can be accessed by all other users, so that if I was to link into this app, I can read a conversation between a participant and a user that had occurred 6 months prior. It creates a sort of intimacy and camaraderie between these young, at-risk men who don't have an active male role model in their lives and these male role models who are there to assist them, who are there to invest in their constructive capacity. So how are we going to launch this? Because the big question then becomes, how do you get them to come onto this app? How do you create an organic drive to this? Well, we're actually going to launch this with a social media campaign. That social media campaign explores this central question. Who was the first person who gave you your first big break? That forces each of these extreme heroes to go back to a time when they were a 19, 20-year-old young man, when they were perhaps conditioned by society into thinking that men should not address identity struggles. And go back to that time and think, who was the first person who invested in you? Because our app service that will be launched right after the social media campaign does just that. In all respects and in all rights, Ahmed is an extreme hero. He is a thought leader. He is convincing all of his friends, all of those people that he was once in contact with, to consider a different narrative, to consider a different capacity for themselves. And to close, I want to tell you this. Extreme hero is a radical idea. In a world where radical ideas are taking our young boys and girls towards destructive means. This is the radical alternative solution. Thank you very much.
So let's have some quick questions from the judges if the rest of the team wants to go up there.
Do we also have a spare mic that we can... I can't actually... Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for that. I really like the way you presented and also the actual concept itself. One question I have with respect to male role models is there any possibility that there is some face-to-face time, not just online time?
Oh, absolutely. So this is an online app. I'm not sure if this is working. Yeah, sorry. So this is an online app. That is how it functions initially. But we do give the capacity for these mentors online to take these conversations offline if both parties agree.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, you've probably thought about how you're going to get people to download this app, and you've got some ideas on launching it and through social media and so forth. How are you going to keep encouraging ongoing usage?
So the mentors obviously do update, and what we were thinking of doing as well is to have, for example, every single quarter of each year, to have access to a big name in the Muslim community, an international scholar, an international sort of icon that young people are familiar with. And they could have perhaps like a 20-minute live conversation, as is common in most of the other communication platforms like Facebook and Twitter. And so that's sort of our way of catering to our niche audience as well.
My question is one about logistics. The extreme heroes that you've named, whether they be famous media people or, you know, just the local imam who happens to be a great guy. The problem with these people is they are incredibly busy. They are all so overstretched. Everyone already wants a piece of them. How are you going to make it feasible for them to be engaged in this process, be available to answer the questions needed, while balancing their already incredibly busy lives?
Absolutely. I think one thing that I should definitely emphasize is that in the advertisement campaign, we definitely will have the big names, the public figures that most people are familiar with. But what we should also allude to is the fact that those big names give you as much service and as much, can give you as much character building as your local paramedic, for example, your local community councillor, your local police officer. So we sort of want to create a campaign that evens the playing field between the public and the private figures so that the capacity building, it doesn't necessarily matter who it comes from, it's more the content and service. Thank you.
Okay, the next team is Prism.